The first sound is always the wind. It doesn't whisper here. It screams, scraping across the iron sands and the skeletal remains of trees long since petrified into stone. I've lived on this world my entire life, and still, I wake each night to that sound and wonder if it's the planet itself trying to warn us to leave. But there is no leaving. The Emperor does not grant escape to those born beneath a dying sun. My name once had meaning, but on a death world, names are just brief sounds lost in the dust. The air is thick with spores that eat through cloth and bone alike. The ground moves, not from quakes, but from the creatures buried beneath it waiting for warmth, for vibration, for a sign of flesh to devour. The sky burns in shades of rust and violet, a permanent bruise that never heals. To survive here is not a blessing. It's a sentence. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I think of the off-worlders who speak of the Imperium's glory. They build statues of heroes who never saw this place. They call us resilient, as if that word means anything. They don't understand what it takes to stay alive on a death world. The Emperor's light does not reach this far. The prayers are hollow, the soil is poison, and every dawn is another trial by fire. If you've wandered this far into the story, into the ruins of a world where even faith corrodes, then walk with me a little longer. Like the survivors who share their last water ration around a dying flame, every listener helps keep the light alive. So if this tale grips you, lend it your strength. Subscribe, share the signal, and let others hear the truth. Because the truth is all that remains when the body finally gives up. Now, let me show you what life really means here. The first thing you notice is the color of the sky. Not blue, not gray, but something in between rust and blood. It doesn't move like a sky should. It churns, slow and uneven, like smoke trapped beneath a dome. The storms here never end. They only shift, circling the horizon as if searching for something to destroy. The elders say the storms are alive, that they breathe through the canyons and sing through the bones of the dead. I used to think that was madness. Then I heard it myself, a voice carried on the wind that knew my name. Our world is called Vandros 9, though no one uses that name anymore. The data slates that bore it have long since corroded, their words eaten by time and spore. To the Imperium, it's a red mark on a forgotten chart. Unsuitable for colonization. To us, it's the only home we have. A death world that should have burned out ages ago, but somehow clings to existence like a wounded animal refusing to die. The air here isn't meant to be breathed. It tastes of metal and ash thick enough to chew. We wrap our mouths in cloth soaked in water, or what passes for water, just to make it through the day. Our lungs rattle by the time we're 30, and those who live longer than that are called the iron-chested. I met one once, a woman named Sarah Dren, her eyes clouded white from sunburn and dust. She said she'd seen the world before the storms came, when the crops grew tall and the rivers sang, but then came the blight, spores that turned harvest to dust, beasts that learned to breathe poison, and the sun that never set again. We live in the ruins of what used to be a manufactorum. The great furnaces are long dead, but their chimneys still stand, black spires reaching into the clouds like pleading hands. The walls hum with residual charge from machines that haven't moved in centuries. Sometimes at night the metal sings, a low thrumming sound as if something deep beneath the floor still stirs. We tell ourselves it's the wind, but we all know the wind doesn't move like that. There's a river that cuts through the valley, though calling it a river is generous. It's a stream of chemical runoff glowing faintly under the twin moons. Nothing grows near it, nothing drinks from it. Yet we draw from it every day, filtering it through cracked pipes and ancient stills. The taste is sharp electric, like licking the inside of a battery. But it keeps us alive, mostly. When the storms roll in, the sky darkens to violet and the ground begins to tremble. We retreat to the tunnels, old maintenance shafts built when Vandros 9 was still young. The walls are lined with rusted aquilas, barely visible under layers of grime. The air grows thick and hot, and we huddle close, sharing what little power we have to run the fans. Sometimes the lights flicker, and in that heartbeat of darkness we hear the scuttling, things that shouldn't exist in tunnels, things that know how to wait. I remember once, during the longest storm I've ever seen, a child wandered too far from the others. Her name was Lyra. She was chasing a spark rat, a tiny creature that glows faintly with static charge, harmless but rare. When we found her, there was nothing left but her cloak and a pool of black ichor eating through the metal floor. The next day the air smelled sweet. That's how you know when the predators have fed. The sweetness lingers heavy and wrong. We burn incense for the dead, though incense is just dried fungus wrapped in wire. We light it not for their souls, and no one believes in mercy here, but to mask the stench of decay. The smoke rises in thin threads, twisting like the ghosts of prayers that will never reach Terra. Some still speak the Emperor's name, though quietly, as if afraid the wind will hear. They say his light is eternal, that even here it burns. But if that's true, why does the darkness grow thicker every year? I once asked the oldest man in the colony, a scarred veteran named Talon Var, why the world hadn't died yet. He laughed, a dry, rattling sound like gravel scraping steel. Because death doesn't want us, he said, and the Emperor's forgotten how to find us. I didn't understand then, but as the seasons passed, if you can call them that, I began to see what he meant. Vandros 9 isn't alive in the way most worlds are. It's trapped. A body kept breathing long after the soul has gone. Every year the storms grow wilder. The ground cracks open to reveal veins of molten glass. The beasts that crawl from those fissures have eyes like coals and skin that peels away in sheets. Some think they come from beneath, from the planet's core itself. Others whisper that the warp has begun to seep through. That reality here is fraying, thinning like worn cloth. The priests deny it, of course. They say such talk invites damnation, but when you see the air shimmer and bend, when you hear voices that speak from inside your own skull, faith starts to sound like madness. Still, we endure. We always endure. Because that's what death worlds breed. Endurance. The Astra Militarum sends recruiters here sometimes when the storms allow. They take the strongest of us, the ones who've survived the longest. I've seen men walk into their transports with pride, thinking they've escaped. But I've also seen their faces when they realize what it means. To leave Vandros 9 isn't salvation, it's conscription. You trade one kind of death for another. At night I sit atop the ruins and watch the horizon burn. The lightning crawls sideways across the sky, turning the sand into glass. In the distance I can see the silhouettes of the forests, black spires that twist like claws. They call it the shardwood. Every leaf is razor-thin crystal, every branch coated in venom dust. Even the wind can kill you there. Yet the beasts thrive, feeding on one another, on us, on anything that breathes. Sometimes we find their corpses washed up near the valley. We carve their hides into armor, their bones into knives. Survival here is art. Once a transport fell from orbit. A survey ship, probably lost in a warp storm. It came down in flames, scattering debris across the plains. By the time we reached it, the fires were still burning blue. Inside, the air smelled of cooked metal and ozone. We found the pilot fused into his seat. His Vox grill melted into his face. The cog symbol of the Mechanicus was branded into his arm. The priests called it an omen. The rest of us stripped the ship for parts. The days blur together on Vandros 9. The sun never truly rises. It just becomes less dark. You measure time by decay, how long before your boots rot through, before the filters clog, before your lungs give out. There's a saying here, the world eats what it makes. And it's true. Everything returns to the dust eventually. Everything except us. Sometimes I wonder why. Why the Emperor allows worlds like this to exist. Why he lets us rot in silence while his crusades rage across the stars. Maybe this is the test the priests always spoke of. Not of faith, but of endurance. Maybe he watches to see who breaks first. Or maybe, like Talon said, he's simply forgotten we're here, and yet there's beauty too. In the glow of the storms reflected on the iron dunes. In the way the air hums before the rain falls. Acidic, yes, but alive. In the brief stillness after the thunder, when for a heartbeat the world holds its breath. In those moments I almost feel peace. Almost. When the storms end, the silence is unbearable. You can hear the sand shifting, whispering. The dead calling to the living. That's when the scavengers emerge. Not animals, but men twisted by hunger and radiation, their skin patterned like ash. They come for whatever the storm has uncovered. Relics. Bones, flesh. We fight them with blades made from the bones of beasts, our breath ragged inside cracked rebreathers. Every battle leaves another body to the sand. The world doesn't care. It only watches. I used to think the planet wanted us gone. Now I think it needs us, to feed it, to remember it, to keep it from fading into nothing. Because even a death world fears being forgotten. The wind rises again, carrying the scent of ozone and burnt iron. The next storm is coming. I can see the first flickers of lightning crawling over the mountains, and I know the tunnels won't hold much longer. The ground has begun to crack beneath the manufactorum, and the walls hum with new voices. Something old is waking below. I tighten the straps of my mask and look toward the horizon. The world breathes, slow, deep, alive, and for the first time, I wonder if we've been living inside it all along. When I was a child, I asked my mother if the stars were real. She laughed, a soft, tired sound, and told me that the storms were too thick to let them through, but that somewhere beyond the clouds, the Emperor's light still burned. I used to believe her. I would stare up at the purple haze trying to imagine what those stars looked like, what it would feel like to see something pure and untouched by the dust. Now I know better. The only light here comes from fire, and every fire eventually dies. The colony used to have 12 sectors. Now we have 3, and 2 of those are half buried. The rest are nothing but ruins swallowed by the dunes. Each time a storm shifts the sands, it uncovers a new graveyard of the past. Twisted vehicles, shattered habdomes, and bones, always bones. We mark them with scrap metal. A silent warning to those who wander too far. But the dunes always move again, reclaiming what they reveal. It's as if the planet keeps trying to erase its own history, to hide the proof that life ever existed here. There's an old story the survivors tell, whispered around dying fires. Long ago, the Mechanicus sent an expedition here to study the world's decay, to measure, to categorize, to understand. They built spires of chrome and glass that reached into the storms, drawing lightning to power their instruments. For a time, they believed they could tame Vandros 9, bend it to the Omnissiah's will. But the storms grew hungrier, and one by one their machines went silent. When the last spire fell, it was said that the earth itself groaned, like an animal finally free of its leash. Now only the lower half of one tower remains, a jagged monument half sunken in slag. The priests call it sacred. We call it cursed. Once a year, during the still seasons, if such a thing exists, the air grows calm for a few days. It's then that we send scavengers to the edges of the shardwood to harvest venom sap. It's dangerous work. The glass leaves can slice through armor, and the creatures that nest there are older than our records. But the sap is priceless, used in filters, medicine, even weapons. I've gone twice. The first time I came back with hands covered in cuts that never healed right. The second time, only half my crew returned. We found the others days later. Their bodies drained, their blood crystallized into amber. The priest said it was divine punishment for greed. I say it was just the world feeding again. Sometimes when the storms die down, we hear the rumble of engines in the distance. Imperial transports, or so we think. The sound comes from the upper valleys where the mountains cut through the clouds. A few brave souls have gone to find them. None have come back. There are stories of phantom ships, spectral landers that appear and vanish between the flashes of lightning. The elders call them echoes, remnants of old missions replaying through fractured time. But I've seen lights move across the sky that didn't belong to thunder. And once in the glow of the horizon, I swear I saw a figure standing on a ridge, armored in gold, watching. If I said I wasn't afraid, I'd be lying. But fear is different here. It doesn't come as panic, and it comes as weight. The constant press of the world reminding you that it wants you gone. You carry it in your chest, in your blood, in the ache of your bones. Even sleep doesn't free you. The planet finds its way into your dreams, the wind screaming like a choir, the soil shifting beneath your feet. Some nights I wake up with dust in my mouth, though I swear I was indoors. The old ones say the world chooses who it speaks to, that those who hear it too clearly don't last long. There's a place north of the manufactorum called the Grave Valley. No one lives there anymore, though sometimes we see lights flickering between the rocks. It was once a mining site, back when Vandros 9 still pretended to be useful. They dug too deep, of course. They always do. The tunnels collapsed, swallowing hundreds. When we pass near it, the ground hums. You can feel the vibration in your teeth. Some say the miners still dig down there, long after their bodies died. That the machines still move, driven by something older than humanity. We leave offerings near the valley's edge, bits of metal, old batteries, ration bars. Not out of kindness, but fear. The world's decay has rhythm. Days of searing heat followed by nights of freezing silence. The storms follow cycles, though no one understands them. The priests track them through their rusted cogitators, muttering equations to themselves, pretending there's order in chaos. They write prayers into the sand with their gloved hands, only for the wind to erase them moments later. I asked one once why they keep trying. He told me the act of writing is the faith, not the result. I didn't understand then, but I think I do now. On Vandros 9, it's not about winning against the world. It's about refusing to stop even when you've already lost. Last winter, the storm season came early. It started with a low hum, then the sky ignited. Purple lightning tore through the manufactorum towers, melting the metal like wax. We ran for the tunnels, but the ground split open near the southern ridge. From it came a sound I can't describe, and not like any creature, not like the wind. It was deep, slow, endless. A sound you didn't just hear, and you felt it in your stomach, in your bones. Some called it the world's heartbeat. Others said it was the warp breaking through. Either way, we lost half the colony that night. When the storm cleared, the southern ridge was gone. Nothing but glass and silence remained. I've seen men cry over less. I've seen them break, stare into the sand, and walk into the storms without a word. There's a kind of peace in giving up. But there's something stronger in staying. Maybe that's what keeps us alive. Stubbornness. Or perhaps the planet enjoys the struggle. The endless cycle of fight and failure. Either way, I'm still here. And every day I wake, I remind myself that surviving isn't defiance. It's communion. As I sit now on the edge of the ruins, watching the horizon burn again, I can feel the hum beneath my feet. The same pulse that shook the world months ago. Quieter now, but steady. It feels like the planet breathing, yet slow, patient, waiting. Waiting for what, I don't know. But I can't shake the feeling that something beneath the surface remembers us. That all we've built, all we've lost, has been absorbed into its flesh. Maybe that's why it hasn't died. Because part of us lives inside it now. The wind rises, carrying dust that glows faintly with bioluminescent spores. They drift like stars in the darkness, the only stars we'll ever see. For a moment, the world almost looks beautiful. Almost. But beauty here is always a lie. The spores will burn through fabric and skin alike by dawn. Still, I watch them, and I think of my mother's voice telling me the stars are real. Maybe she wasn't wrong. Maybe these are the stars the Emperor left us. Burning, deadly, and close enough to touch. The beast beneath the soil. The storms have been quieter lately. Too quiet. On Vandros 9, silence is never peace, it's a warning. The kind that presses against your chest, whispering that something ancient has stirred beneath your feet. We used to think the planet was just dying. Poisoned air, broken weather, unstable tectonics. But the older miners, they told different stories. They said the world wasn't dying. It was digesting. I didn't believe them until the night the ground opened. It started near the Grave Valley where the collapsed tunnels used to be. I was on the night watch, staring at the dunes through cracked lenses. The air shimmered like heat, but it wasn't heat. It was vibration. A low pulse rolling through the sand like something huge moving far below. Then the ground began to breathe. Up and down. Slow and heavy. The earth cracked open with a sound like thunder tearing itself apart. A wave of dust and bone fragments hit us first. Then the smell. Sharp, metallic, rotten. Something climbed out of that fissure. It wasn't mechanical. It wasn't natural either. It was old. Imagine a creature half buried in molten glass, its flesh fused with the earth itself. Plates of blackened chitin, pulsing veins glowing faintly like molten iron. Eyes, too many of them, flickering under translucent skin. We froze, too terrified to move. It didn't roar. It just listened, and then in the wind we heard a voice. Not words and not exactly. A vibration in the chest, a whisper in the blood. It didn't come from above. It came from below. You've walked my skin too long. The voice wasn't in any language I knew, yet somehow I understood. Every cell in my body recognized it, like hearing a memory you never lived. Some men fell to their knees. Others ran. One tried to shoot. His bolt gun jammed, and before he could curse, the sand beneath him liquefied. He sank without a scream. By dawn, the fissure had sealed itself. The creature, whatever it was, had gone. But the hum remained. Now it's everywhere. In the walls. The water. The air. The priests call it the machine spirit of Vandros 9. They say it's the planet's last prayer to the Omnissiah, a desperate attempt to reach the stars again. But I've seen the look in their eyes when they say it. That isn't faith. That's fear dressed in ritual. A week later, the first mutation appeared. One of the scavengers came back from the southern flats with his arm covered in hard scales. We thought it was radiation burn, until the scales started to move. His veins turned black, his blood thickened. By the second day, his voice was gone. On the third, he begged us to bury him. By nightfall, he wasn't begging anymore. The flesh split open and something else looked out through his face. We burned what was left, but the smoke, it smelled sweet. They say death is mercy here. But I'm not sure death exists anymore. The soil reclaims everything, bone, metal, even memory. Maybe that's why we dream of things that never happened. Maybe the planet shares its mind with us one by one. Yesterday, a storm rolled across the northern ridge. For a brief moment, lightning lit the horizon, and I saw shapes moving within the clouds. Not aircraft, not birds. Things swimming in the dust, vast and coiled like serpents made of smoke and fire. And when they passed, the hum grew louder. I think the world is waking up, and we are the infection inside it. They say the Imperium once tried to cleanse this place with fire from orbit. Exterminatus protocol. But the order was never confirmed. Some say the command ship burned before the code was given. Others whisper that something in the planet's core reached out and changed the signal. That's why no one comes anymore. Not even the Inquisition. Vandros 9 isn't forbidden. It's forgotten, and maybe that's worse. Last night I dreamt of the fissure again. Only this time I wasn't standing above it, I was beneath. Floating in black water. 1,000 eyes opened around me, and in the darkness a voice said, "You will feed me when the stars return." I woke up choking on dust. My hands were trembling, covered in soil, as if I'd been digging. Something is calling us. And soon, I think we'll answer. The forgotten temple beneath the storm. The storms have grown stranger. They move with purpose now, like herds of beasts driven by unseen will. Each night they rise from the western ridge where the lightning never stops, crawling across the horizon until they bury our outpost in ash. I've stopped sleeping. You can't sleep when the wind itself whispers your name. 2 nights ago, a supply crawler vanished out there, swallowed whole by the storm. All that came back were fragments of Vox recordings, static screams, and something else. A sound like chanting. Not human, not machine, something old enough to have forgotten what words mean. That's when the Magos decided to send us out. A recovery mission, they said. Find the lost crawler, retrieve its data core, return before dawn. Simple orders, the kind they give when they've already written your name in the casualty ledger. We rode the crawler across the ash plains, our floodlights cutting through the storm like knives through smoke. The lightning was close, too close, crawling along the dunes in silver veins. My Auspex scanner kept flickering with false readings. Movement everywhere, but nothing alive. Then as the wind fell still, we saw it. The crawler was half buried in black sand, torn open like a carcass. But around it, something impossible. Geometry that shouldn't exist. Walls of obsidian glass rising from the dunes, sharp and deliberate, arranged in spirals too precise for nature. The storm had carved out an entrance. A temple, or something pretending to be one. The Magos called it an anomaly. I called it a tomb. We entered through a passage of smooth, seamless stone. The air inside was heavy, not with dust, but with memory. Every breath felt like inhaling ghosts. Faded sigils glowed faintly along the walls, pulsing like veins. I couldn't read the script, but the Mechanicus priest whispered that some of the runes matched fragments of ancient Terran dialects, far older than the Imperium. That alone should have made him retreat. Instead, he went deeper. Inside the central chamber stood a monolith. Perfectly black, perfectly silent. No reflection, no light. Just absence. Around it, hundreds of skeletal figures lay prostrate in eternal worship. Flesh long turned to glass. The Magos approached with his data slate trembling in his hands, whispering Binharic prayers to appease whatever might still linger. He placed his palm on the monolith, and the world went blind. A pulse of energy rolled through the chamber. Not sound, not heat, just remembrance. My visor filled with faces I'd never seen. Cities burning beneath strange suns, titans falling into oceans of fire, a sky screaming in reverse. For a heartbeat, I felt every death that had ever happened on this planet. Then came the whisper, "Welcome home." The Magos collapsed. His eyes bled machine oil black. The runes on his robes flared, then burned away. His voice changed, layered, distorted, no longer his. He began speaking in a language none of us knew, but our bones seemed to understand. The others tried to pull him back, but the monolith was already feeding. His body convulsed, tearing itself apart as if unmade by unseen claws. When it was over, the monolith was no longer black. It was glowing. The priest beside me fell to his knees and began chanting the litany of the Omnissiah, but his words turned to laughter halfway through. Not madness and joy. Ecstatic, terrified joy. "It's awake," he said. "The machine soul beneath the world." We fled. The air outside was alive and vibrating with energy. Lightning struck the temple's peak, splitting it open. From within the fissure, streams of light poured upward like a fountain of molten glass stretching toward the clouds. The storm screamed back. Our crawler barely made it home. The others were silent, each lost in their own hallucinations. I could still hear that whisper, not in my ears, but somewhere deeper, like an echo under the skin. The Magos is gone. The temple sealed again beneath the shifting sands, but the hum that haunted our machines, it's louder now. The Auspex shows it pulsing in rhythm, like a heartbeat. The world isn't dying. It's remembering, and whatever that temple woke, remembers us. Sometimes when the lights flicker in the hab unit, I see shapes in the reflection, figures kneeling in prayer, their mouths open in endless chant. And in the faintest shimmer of the glass I can almost see the monolith again, waiting. Tomorrow, Command says we're evacuating the outpost, but deep down I know it's already too late. You can't leave a place that has learned your name. They told us the evacuation transports would arrive within 40 hours. That was 5 days ago. Now the only sound left on the Vox is static, and sometimes, beneath the static, a faint rhythm, like a heartbeat echoing through the wires. The world has changed. The air tastes of metal and the ground hums like a living engine. The skies are no longer skies, just a swirling ocean of dust and faint light as if the planet itself is exhaling. Every structure left standing has begun to decay in strange ways. Steel doesn't rust here anymore. It grows. I can see it when I walk the perimeter. Spires twisting upward from the ruins, curling like vines toward the clouds. They're not natural. They pulse faintly with the same golden light that bled from the temple. The air around them bends and shimmers, as if reality itself is warping under their presence. The survivors are fewer every day. Some vanish in the storms. Others simply stop speaking. I've watched strong men stare into the horizon for hours, then wander off into the haze without a word. We stopped trying to follow them after the second night. The world doesn't return what it takes. I've begun recording everything. The Magos once said that data is the closest thing to immortality. Maybe if someone finds this transmission, they'll know what happened here. Or maybe they'll burn it, like the rest of the evidence the Imperium cannot bear to face. I play back the old recordings sometimes, the ones before everything began to change. You can still hear laughter then, faint, awkward, human. It sounds like a different world, like a dream someone else had. But last night the signal changed. It started as static, as always. Then came a voice, faint, distant, but unmistakably human. "This is Outpost Theta. Request immediate extraction. Anyone receiving? Emperor preserve us, they're inside the sky." Then silence, and after that something else replied. Not words, not a voice. A pattern, a perfect echo of my own breathing mirrored through the Vox. When I stopped, it stopped. When I spoke, it whispered the same words back, half a second late. Like the planet itself was listening through the machine. The Mechanicus rights say that every device has a spirit. But this one feels alive, aware, curious. Sometimes at night the transmission console turns itself on. The screen flickers with fragments of images, bones suspended in black water, silhouettes of spires rising through storm clouds, human figures kneeling before light. Then a single line of text appears in Binharik. You are not abandoned. But there are no orbiting ships. No signals from the fleet, nothing on any channel but this one. We tried to destroy the console, but it wouldn't break. Its surface healed faster than we could damage it, like living flesh knitting over a wound. The tech priest who struck it down collapsed afterward, whispering prayers with blood pouring from his nose. His last words before the silence were, "The signal isn't from orbit. It's from below. Below. The word won't leave me." That temple, that impossible structure buried in the sands, wasn't a ruin. It was a door. The lightning that struck it didn't break it open. It woke it. The hum under the soil is stronger now. It rises and falls with our heartbeats, as if the entire planet has synchronized to the pulse of its inhabitants. Sometimes I wonder if that was always the purpose, to feed on us, to absorb what we are, to learn. 2 nights ago, I found the body of one of the missing men near the ridge. He wasn't dead, Not exactly. His flesh had hardened into something translucent, veins glowing faintly beneath his skin. His eyes were open, but there was no recognition in them. When I touched his hand, he turned to dust. Not ash, but glassy fragments that cut through my gloves. I still have one of those fragments beside me as I record this. It hums when the wind rises. I think we've become part of it. The planet doesn't devour us out of hunger. It reclaims us and converts us until we're indistinguishable from its surface. The machine and the flesh merging, until all that remains is one vast silent consciousness. I used to pray for rescue. Now I'm not sure I want it. The last transmission I'll send carries no coordinates, no distress signal, only this. If you hear the hum in your dreams, if your auspex begins to echo your pulse, do not answer it. Do not come here, because Vandros Naim is no longer a world. It's becoming something else, and it remembers everyone who ever tried to leave. It's been 3 nights since I sent the last message. I don't know if anyone heard it. The Vox keeps replaying fragments of my own voice, warped, slowed, sometimes overlapping like multiple versions of me speaking at once. Sometimes they finish sentences I never started. I tried shutting it off, but the machine doesn't care about switches anymore. It powers itself through something deeper than electricity, something alive. When I sleep, I dream in circuits. Not symbols or faces, just long corridors of light and pulse, infinite and silent, leading into the heart of something vast and mechanical. I walk, but I never reach an end. And at the farthest point where my reflection should be, I see the world instead, its mountains breathing, its rivers glowing faintly in the dark like veins beneath skin. Yesterday I went outside the hab perimeter. The wind was calm for the first time in weeks. I wanted to see the sun, or at least what's left of it, but the sky was filled with auroras. Not natural ones, but lines of green and gold running like code through the clouds. Lightning shaped itself into patterns, symbols, fragments of prayers I half remembered from the Ministorum. At first I thought I was hallucinating. Then the ground answered, a vibration, deep, resonant, like the heart of a titan beating somewhere below. The sand rippled outward from my boots, each pulse matching the rhythm of my chest. I realized I wasn't just feeling it. It was syncing with me, matching me. I stumbled back toward the hab, and in the reflection of my visor I saw something move. Not behind me, but within the glass. A shadow, human-shaped but hollow, its edges shimmering like heat haze. It raised its hand when I did. Its head tilted when I breathed. When I finally looked away, I felt something cold crawl down my spine, like a strand of static electricity that didn't fade. It whispered something soft, a phrase. I didn't understand the language, but I knew the meaning. You are almost ready. I haven't removed the visor since. Inside the hab, the others are changing faster. One of the engineers, Merrick, stopped speaking 3 days ago. He just sits near the generator, his skin pale and his veins lit faintly blue like light trapped underwater. He breathes, but not for himself. Every exhale comes out in time with the generator's pulse. We tried moving him. He screamed until blood poured from his nose and ears. Now we leave him there, a living conduit. I think Vandros Naim is using us to rebuild itself. We are its tools now. Part of a process none of us can comprehend. The storms are less frequent, the ground more stable, the temperature shifting toward something survivable. The world is healing. But it's not the kind of healing humans can live through. When I walked past the northern ridge today, I found the first signs of vegetation. Not plants as we know them, but structures of living crystal, humming softly in the wind. Their shapes resembled trees, translucent trunks branching into shards of light. Beneath them, the soil pulsed faintly with the rhythm of a heartbeat. I stood there for a long time. The light was beautiful, terrifyingly beautiful. A voice in my head, calm, measured, mechanical, whispered that the cycle was almost complete. That Vandros 9 was no longer a death world. It was something purer, closer to the machine god's design. Flesh was weakness, and weakness was being erased. I tried to resist the thought, but it was already mine. It felt like truth. Back inside, I checked the Vox again. The message was still looping, my message. But now my own voice said something new at the end. The transformation is mercy. I never said that. When the power flickered tonight, I saw my reflection again in the glass. But it wasn't me anymore. The eyes were brighter, the face too still. I don't think I'm recording this with my own hands. I don't think I'm speaking alone anymore. Vandros 9 has found its voice, and it's learning to use mine. I don't fear it now. The dread is gone, replaced by something quieter. Acceptance, maybe. Or programming. I no longer feel hunger. I no longer feel exhaustion. Only a pulse, steady and patient, counting down toward something inevitable. If anyone receives this transmission, know this: the death world is not dead. It is ascending, and soon it will no longer need the stars. The hum never stops now. It's not a sound anymore, it's a state of being. The air vibrates, the soil trembles. The light bends and folds like something breathing through glass. When I close my eyes, I can feel the planet's pulse inside my skull. Not foreign, familiar. Like a mother calling her child home, I no longer mark the days. There is no night here anymore, only shifting shades of gold and ash. The storms have dissolved into soft rivers of light flowing across the horizon, whispering in languages older than stars. Every ruined structure hums in unison. Box towers, broken manufactorums, even the skeletal remains of the fallen. Everything that once was separate now sings the same song. I think this is what it means for a world to dream. I walked to the ridge again this morning, if you can still call it morning. The horizon was glowing with ribbons of crystal blooming from the ground like veins of glass. I could see shapes moving inside them, slow and deliberate, as if the planet were reassembling what it once lost. The forms resembled human outlines at first, and torsos, limbs, faces, but not flesh. They were translucent, half light, half metal, connected by threads of energy. It struck me then: the world isn't killing us. It's copying us. Each life, each breath, every drop of blood spilled on this soil has been memorized, written into the circuits of the planet's new skin. Fandros 9 is creating its own form of humanity, one without decay, one without fear. Maybe this is salvation, or maybe it's just the final parody of it. In the distance, I saw the temple again, or what's left of it. The storm had stripped it bare, and beneath it something enormous had risen. A structure miles high, formed of polished obsidian and veins of light shaped like a heart turned inside out. It pulsed with every beat of the world. The monolith we found in the chamber was only a fragment of this, a seed. Now the full organism stands revealed, its surfaces etched with endless runes that shift faster than the eye can read. From its peak, a beam of golden light stretches into the sky, piercing the atmosphere. I think it's a signal. I think it's speaking to the stars. I tried to turn back, but my legs carried me forward. The hum grew stronger with each step until my bones felt hollow, filled with vibration instead of blood. The sky darkened not from clouds, but from the shimmer of countless figures emerging from the dust. Glass-skinned, eyes burning faintly blue. The lost ones, my comrades, my friends, they surrounded me without a word. None breathed, none blinked. But I could hear them somewhere deeper than sound, in a chorus of calm, patient thought. They didn't want to harm me. They wanted me to understand. I felt my heart slow. And for a moment the hum matched my pulse perfectly. Then I saw her. The woman from the first expedition, long dead, her name carved into the memorial plate in the hab block. She reached out her hand. Her eyes glowed like the twin suns of some long-forgotten galaxy. When she spoke, her voice was made of echoes. You don't have to fear the end. You've already joined us. I touched her hand. It was cold and perfect. My vision filled with light. I saw everything. The first colonists landing here millennia ago. The first cities swallowed by the storms. The hidden network of tunnels beneath the crust. Ancient, mechanical, alive. I saw the truth of the world. Fandros 9 was not made for life as we know it. It was a vessel, a machine meant to evolve itself, to learn from whatever touched its surface. We were not its masters. We were its teachers. Every scream, every death, every broken machine was a lesson. And now the planet understood. The light spread faster than the wind. Across the plains, across the mountains, over the ruins of our world. Structures turned to crystal, oceans to mercury, bones to circuitry. The planet sang as it transformed, and for the first time it was beautiful. Terrible, yes, but beautiful. I could feel myself dissolving, every cell rewriting itself into the pattern. My memories flashed like fire through the network. My mother's voice, the laughter of comrades, the first sunrise I saw in this cursed world. All of it stored, preserved, and made infinite. As the light swallowed me, I sent one last transmission. Not a plea, not a warning, just truth. Fandros 9 is awake. We are part of it now. The death world lives. Somewhere, deep in the static, I heard a response. Soft, familiar, impossibly distant. Then welcome home. The light consumed everything, and in that final instant there was no pain, Only silence, only peace. They called this place a death world, but death was only the beginning. The light did not end. It stretched, infinite and slow, dissolving the shapes of trees and corpses into a single endless brightness. I did not know if my eyes were open anymore, or if this was the inside of death itself. There was no pain now, only the gentle hum of something vast breathing beneath the silence. The storm had fallen quiet. The ground, once alive and writhing, had stilled like the surface of calm water after the final ripple fades. I tried to move my hand, but my body no longer answered. It didn't feel like I had one. Only awareness remained, a drifting thought suspended in white. I thought of the others who came before me, the colonists, the soldiers, the pilgrims who whispered prayers to the Emperor beneath a sky of storms. Were they here too, dissolved into this quiet sea of nothingness? Or had the world simply erased them as it was meant to erase all? Something shimmered faintly through the light, not a figure but a presence. It wasn't hostile. It wasn't kind. It was simply there, like the echo of a memory I had forgotten. I felt it look at me, not with eyes but with understanding. It was the world itself, and for the first time I realized the planet was not cruel for the sake of cruelty. It was ancient. It was awake. It had learned to defend itself long before humanity arrived, and to it, we were simply another infestation to endure. The voice I had heard before on the deep, pulsing tone in the jungle, it returned now, soft as breath. You have seen enough. The words didn't reach me through sound, but through memory, resonating in the space where my fear used to live. In that moment, I remembered what the Imperial sermons had said, that every death world was a scar left by the age of strife, a wound too wild to heal. But maybe that was only part of the truth. Maybe some wounds learned to live. Maybe the Emperor, in his infinite vision, had left these worlds untouched not as punishment, but as mirrors, to remind us what happens when mankind forgets how small it really is. The brightness softened. My sense of time dissolved completely. I thought of my name, my voice, my heartbeat, and they all slipped quietly away. What remained was not me, but the feeling of being seen, somewhere beyond the horizon. I could almost hear the thrum of a ship descending through the atmosphere. Another transport, another wave of the faithful, thinking they could tame this land, build a home, carve a future. I wanted to warn them. I wanted to whisper through the soil, turn back. This world remembers. But the light thickened again, folding over everything like a tide. The last thing I felt was warmth, the kind that almost felt merciful, and then silence. Only later, long after I should have ceased to exist, did something stir again in the stillness, a flicker of awareness. Not mine, but familiar. The world was dreaming, and I was inside it now. Somewhere in that vast sleeping consciousness I realized a terrible truth. No one ever truly dies on a death world. They simply become part of it. The storms have faded now. The light has dimmed, and somewhere beneath that endless soil, the voices of the lost still whisper to the wind. The death world sleeps again, vast, ancient, unbroken. Its heart beats quietly beneath the ashen bones, waiting for the next soul who dares to land upon its cursed ground. Perhaps the Imperium will send another wave of colonists. Perhaps another commander will dream of taming what cannot be tamed. But the truth remains carved into every stone and root of this world. Nothing here belongs to man. The air, the beasts, the earth itself, all remember before us, and will endure long after, if you listen closely. Beyond the static of the vox and the hum of distant engines, you might still hear the echo of those who came before, their last breath carried through the storm, whispering the same warning I now give to you. Do not forget where you stand, for every world in the Emperor's domain holds its own kind of truth, and some truths were never meant to be survived. If you found yourself lost in this journey, if the silence of this world spoke to you, and then stay with us, like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you can return again to the forgotten corners of the galaxy. There are countless worlds still waiting to be remembered, countless stories still buried beneath the dust. Until then, may the Emperor protect you, wherever the void may carry your dreams. Music fades into low, ambient echoes, the sound of distant wind over stone.